Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, Living with Fibromyalgia. I just want to point out that I've changed the name of my channel to make it easier for people to find it. This Girl is on Fire is no longer the name of my channel. I thought it was a pretty cool name, but it makes it hard for people on YouTube to actually look up and find the channel. So Living with Fibromyalgia is how you can find me now. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and share with friends, other people who may have fibromyalgia or chronic pain. Please share this with them if you feel that it would be a place of encouragement and support. So today's topic I'm going to talk about is diagnosis of fibromyalgia and maybe a little bit about treatment, but mainly I'm going to talk about diagnosis. And the reason I am is because this has been a repeated question that has come to me by people who say, I think I have fibromyalgia. How do I know? Or they ask me, what kind of doctor do I go to get diagnosed by fibromyalgia? And there are several aspects of this I want to talk to you and little nuggets that I want to send your way. And then at the end of this video, I want to leave you with a really good resource that I call my Fibromyalgia Bible. And I've recommended this book to many people over the years. And it's one I love because it's very thorough. It was really spot on. And it helped me actually in talking to my family about how I was feeling. And this book just is a great resource that I keep going back to. It's not one of those books that I just put down, I read once and put down. It may not be a book that you read from cover to cover, but it's one you definitely want on your shelf, a reference book, right, that you can go back to and chew on some of the nuggets in there, or let it be very affirming for you and what you're experiencing in your body. So let's talk about diagnosis today. And all I can do is talk from my own experience and things that I've learned over the years. So first of all, what kind of doctor do you go to be diagnosed with fibromyalgia? My journey was interesting because I was having different symptoms that mimic other diseases. And this is pretty typical of fibromyalgia. So one rule of thumb first is to rule out everything else that it could be. And the way that I did that was to go to a neurologist, and I actually went to a neurologist who was extremely thorough in her testing of me. So I'm actually, as I look back on that, I was very grateful for that. But that's kind of how you get diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So if you test for all these other diseases and other things that it mimics, and all that comes back positive, meaning it's good, you know, like you don't have that, you don't have that, you don't have that, you don't have that, and you get to the end of the list and they go, you must have fibromyalgia. So that was the first step that I took, going to a neurologist. And they want to rule out things like MS, muscular sclerosis, and things like that. So I had some tests that on here may seem kind of scary, but it was actually very good to be thorough and have those kind of tests to make sure nothing else was going on. I believe one of the tests, don't quote me, but I think it's called an EEG, where they test for neuropathy. They test for, you know, the numbness and tingling in your hands and feet. I had a test for MS, which is actually a spinal tap. I had that done, and that ruled that out. And just some other tests that neurologists can do to rule out some of those. So if you go and get those kind of tests and then it just comes back, nope, I don't have that, I don't have that, I don't have that, a neurologist will sit there and say, more than likely you're dealing with fibromyalgia. Now, the ironic part of that is you would think having fibromyalgia, you would go to a neurologist as your doctor for that. that is not usually the case. I have found that you are referred most of the time to a rheumatologist. I still haven't quite figured out the logic of that, but okay. And so that's the direction I went. So when I was diagnosed in Kansas, I went to the neurologist first, everything's fine. Then I went to a rheumatologist, and in the office, he did what's called a trigger point test. Now, if you haven't heard of this, I will just give a brief synopsis. It's very simple. It's where the doctor will sit there and press on certain points of your body and ask you if you have pain there. And if you say yes to 11 or more points, they consider that you have fibromyalgia. And so who I saw on a regular basis was my rheumatologist in Kansas. Now, he was very good. I will say he was more on the old school side of treating fibromyalgia with medication. Again, I'm not going to get into a controversial discussion here about, it's not my place to say how you are treated. That's a doctor's place. But a lot of doctors will either go more natural methods or the pill route, right? Of course, all doctors usually will tell you diet, exercise, and rest, the standard, and those are all important for all of us, whether we have fibromyalgia or not. So I don't want to get too much into treatment because, again, everybody's journey is different and what works for them is different. And I've been on both sides, both camps. I've been in both camps. So when I started this journey in fibromyalgia, I was on heavy duty medications. I have changed my journey and I am off of all fibro medications, and I choose to go a more natural route for me. Again, this is just my journey, and I use aqua therapy, massage, light walking, meditation, those kind of things that have been extremely helpful to me, and sometimes I think more so than the medication that I was on at the time. So when choosing a doctor, if you want to have the conversation, I would say maybe go to a rheumatologist first. But here's the deal. Not all doctors believe in fibromyalgia. I'm going to say that again. Not all doctors believe in fibromyalgia. So be picky. Choose a doctor. Even ask them the question, do you believe in fibromyalgia? And if they don't, just keep walking and find one that does, because you need support. You need someone who believes that you are really experiencing those things you are experiencing in your body. So I would support you and encourage you to find the right doctor. Be picky and don't mind taking some time and go doctor to doctor if you have to. I'm not sure I've talked about this scenario yet here, but this is a true story in my journey. So when I was in Kansas, I had a rheumatologist and I had a family physician, and I was seeing both of them. They both knew the different symptoms I was having, but they both came to a different conclusion. My family physician was convinced that I was dealing with symptoms of Lyme disease, and she wanted to treat me for Lyme. She did not believe in fibromyalgia. And I talked to my rheumatologist, who believed in fibromyalgia but did not believe really in Lyme disease manifesting in the body in that way. So I had two different doctors with me in the middle. This one saying I want to treat you for Lyme, and this one over here saying I want to treat you for fibromyalgia. Basically, I told both of them, I'm going to stay as your patient for both of you. Both of you treat me in the way that you want to treat me, and we're going to see what works. And to be honest, there were some things on the Lyme side that actually worked for me, where I actually had some no pain days. And so there is something to it in the body with inflammation and stuff like that, the way it manifests. But, you know, these two doctors were adamant about their belief systems. They both believed on the opposite side of the coins. And me as a patient, I didn't feel like I really had to pick and choose between the two of them unless something conflicted in the treatment, but it really didn't. I was like, you just do what you want to do. You do what you want to do. I'll go with it and we'll see what works, you know, what is most effective. So please, I would just encourage you greatly. Don't feel like you have to stick with a doctor that is sitting there telling you you're crazy. It's all in your head. That is another thing fibromyalgia people hear a lot. It's all in your head. Let me just say something about that. In a way, that's true. On a psychological level, that is not true. Fibromyalgia is more of what I would call a brain disease, a central nervous system disease. It is not muscular, it is not in the nerves, although that is what we feel in our bodies as muscle pain and nerve pain, because the body does not know how to shut that off. So understanding, I guess, where fibromyalgia originates in the body, even though they don't know much about it, I find in my own journey what it feels like to me, and again, I've learned to trust my gut, is it feels like a central nervous system issue. Because when I am having a bad episode of fibromyalgia, what happens is I get oversensitive to light and hearing, you know, sound, and even smells and stuff. It seems like it just comes from this central nervous system place. And then when I have my fatigue, there are times my eyelids are shut and I cannot open my eyelids, but I can hear and I'm aware. And so that's the only way I know how to describe some of my symptoms. But with diagnosis, I would say please don't self-diagnose yourself. That is the other thing I've come across, and that's a question I will ask people. When I tell them I have fibromyalgia, they go, oh, I have fibromyalgia too. I'm like, have you been diagnosed by a doctor? And they'll say, well, no. And so people like to self-diagnose themselves with fibro, you know, because they have aches and pains. But fibro is more than that, and that is what this book that I'm going to refer to you helps you realize, that some of these other symptoms that you're having, once you are diagnosed with fibromyalgia, you'll go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that was part of my fibro. I have a couple of examples of that. I kept getting charley horses and muscle spasms in my feet. I didn't realize that was part of my fibromyalgia. I had this pain in sometimes it was in my scapula and sometimes it was in my lower back on one side. I didn't realize that was part of my fibromyalgia. I have irritable bladder symptoms that was waking me up during the night. I thought, wow, that's just old age, or, you know, or I have some other condition going on. Come to find out, it's just the nerves in the bladder that are being irritated from the fibromyalgia. So once you get diagnosed, that is the good thing too, is hopefully you have an educated doctor who can say, oh, these other symptoms you have are part of fibro or are not a part of fibro. And that's another important thing. Along the journey, don't just assume if you have a new symptom that it's from the fibromyalgia. That's why I keep in touch with my doctor about every 6 months, because I told him, you are my voice, you are my ear. You're the one I need to be able to come to and say, I'm experiencing this new thing. is that fibromyalgia or is it something else, you know, and do I need to get that checked out by another doctor or whatever? So you have to have that educated eyes and ears to help with the discernment in it, because fibromyalgia is so experienced so differently from person to person. So to have that doctor on board is extremely important. So I want to thank you for your time today. And before I go, if you could just, you may want to stop this to just go get a pen or pencil so that you can write down this resource for you, which I call my Fibro Bible. And it can be found on Amazon.com. I don't know if it's in the local library. If you want to try that, go for it. So here is the resource that I wanted to share with you today because it's meant so much to me and been a great thing to have on my shelf that I wanted to share it with you. So the title of the book is Fibromyalgia and Chronic Myofascial Pain. And if you need that spelled, MYOFASCIAL, myofascial pain, a survival manual. And it's written by two authors. The first author is Devin, with a D as in dog, Devin Starlanel, and I'll spell that Starlanel, Starlanel, and Mary Ellen Copeland. So again, you can rewind if you need to get that information again, but I wanted to share that with you. And it was so great to be with you today. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and I hope we can continue the conversation as we go forward in our journeys to wholeness and health. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.